Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Bench Podcast. As always, I'm Jake Johnson. Alongside me is Aaron Valentino and Brandon Ladd. And we have another special guest coming from you today. We have Seth Cooper, one of my good friends. He's a social media digital content creator for the Philadelphia Flyers. He's worked with the WWE, and he has done some broadcasting stuff for their AHL team. He worked with me for the Glens Falls Dragons. So Seth got quite a resume on him already. How you doing today, Seth?
First of all, thanks, guys, for having me on your podcast. Thanks to Aaron, Brennan, and Jake. I appreciate the time and the consideration to have me on as a guest.
Yeah, of course. We're going to get right into it. We just got a couple questions for you today. We've started every podcast off like this. What have you been doing so far during quarantine? What have you kept occupied doing?
It was a weird situation. So I go to school at Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida. So I moved to Florida in August of 2018 after high school, and then was there for about a year and 3 months. And it's a school where you go for 20 months basically, and you get your bachelor's. So you're in there for under 2 years, and you're already off to the field. So I had an opportunity to join the Philadelphia Flyers organization in September. So I lived in Allentown, PA, which is about 48 minutes from Philadelphia. So it was a nice little trip there. But I lived about 2 minutes from the PPL Center. So I was doing some stuff with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms until November, and then got the opportunity to join the big club with the Flyers from November until the abrupt halt of the NHL season. And basically, I had to move from Philly to New York, which took about 3.5 weeks total. And now I'm at home in my parents' basement, kind of made it my own down here, and looking forward to school resuming once again and graduating and figuring out what I'm going to do then. But as of right now, I'm just kind of relaxing and watched a bunch of Family Guy and American Dad.
So, you mentioned, Seth, that you are attending Full Sail University. What is it kind of like down there? It's kind of a different sort of school at Full Sail.
Yeah, it is. So what's really cool about it is we have a director and then we have a program director. So the director is Dan Patrick. His resume goes on and on from ESPN to NBCSN now to the Dan Patrick Show, which is on NBCSN. And then below him is Gus Ramsey, who is our program director, who's kind of our main guy in charge, which is super nice. He's a really good guy. And what it is you learn from people in the business. So he was a director, editor, producer at ESPN for 20 plus years, and he was part of their layoffs in 2015, and then joined Full Sail in 2018, and they launched the sports broadcasting program. So we don't go by semester, we go by month. So we do a class every month, which is incredible. And then you only, gen ed classes you take is your math and your English, and the rest are just program based. So about 4 months in, I was already on the air, learned how to do scripts, and was hosting a 30-minute show by myself, which is pretty impressive. You look at these other schools such as Oswego and Syracuse, they do something very similar, but it's also it's a 4-year school, and we're a 20-month school. So it moves a lot quicker, and you got to be on top of things. And plus your professors are people that are in the industry. I had Mike Tirico as a professor. I've had Jonathan Coachman as a professor, and I've had guys that have been in the industry, and they come down for the month. They live in Florida for the month, which, you can't really complain living in Florida for the month. You got Disney right there. You got so many spring trainings, facilities, and they like living there for the month, and then they teach the class, and then they go back to work wherever they're working. It's fun.
So doing such a specialized program like that, do you miss anything about the normal college experience? Do you ever wish you were at a traditional 4-year, or are you happy with the decision you made?
I'll get my bachelor's degree before I'm even 21. So that's pretty impressive in itself. But also, you have no dorms down there. So you live in an apartment by yourself, And when I was 18, that was a huge transition to be able to do that. And then I had never had any roommates before. So I had a roommate who went to Full Sail University, but was in a completely different program. But once, you kind of do miss the 4 year, do you really miss your summers? Florida's basically summer all year. And I think probably what I missed the most was not having kind of those months off, but once again, you don't get a spring break. You get, last year, you got a month off for Christmas, which was very rare. Usually you're back at it, 2 or 3 days after. But we went back, I believe, the 16th to the 17th. And then, like I said, you missed your spring break, but you're down in a spring break state. So it's basically, if you want to go out and do things, you can go out and do things. But with it such being, a quick school, you have to stay on top of your schoolwork. And, every single day at that school, there's so many people popping in my first week. There was John Mayer was in the production room, the music production room, working with students, and it's John Mayer, and we stopped by and talked to some kids and stuff like that. So it's a very laid back school, but also too, you're in the industry, and a lot of my classwork, I never got really homework. I never got a test. I've never taken a test ever at college. A lot of your work is based on real life experience. So for one of my final projects, I did a weekend with the Syracuse Mets and with the Syracuse Crunch, and I was graded how I performed, how I was around the media, down in the clubhouse, in the Syracuse Crunch locker room, things like that. So, it's a hands-on school, but also too, you're traveling a lot, and then also, you're in Florida. So I think what I missed probably was not having the summer months, but it goes by so quick, you don't even realize it.
Yeah, and it's kind of, we're from the Adirondacks, the three of us, and then Aaron's from New Jersey. So we kind of have our area up here. But when you go down to Florida, it's warm all the time. You don't really have, obviously don't have snow. So it's definitely different. Did you miss leaving the area for that amount of time and not really being able to come back, or did you kind of adjust to it very easily?
It probably, took about maybe 2 months to get used to it. I moved there in August, and it was the heat that really kind of takes a toll. And a lot of, I was in walking distance of the school. Like I said, there's a campus, but there's not like a typical dining hall. You have to go and get your groceries on your own. You have to, you're basically kind of living on your own while going to school. And then there's no way you can have a job down there. So you're not making any money. So you're living off of, in my case, I lived off of my graduation money for the time I was down there. So it really taught you a lot, how to budget, not to go out to eat a lot. And that's kind of the temptation. Adirondacks really aren't a place where you have food 24 hours a day, and you got bars right down the street that you can walk to. And that was kind of the temptation of, oh, do I go out to eat with, some of my classmates tonight? Do I stay home? And, we kind of, you adjust to it very quickly, but then coming home for the holidays was always nice. I mean, I had a month. So, and then also, we had hockey and things like that. But I think what I missed the most for being down there for a year was be able to work in hockey.
So moving on from college now, how did you really get your start with the WWE? And I know you worked with the Flyers for a good amount of time.
Full Sail University and WWE have a partnership. They run their NXT shows, which were taped. Now they're live thanks to some competition from AEW. But so they kind of already have that partnership, and a program director, Gus Ramsey, said, I think it was November of 2018, he sent us all an email with all the kids in the program and said, hey, WWE is looking to do a internship program through the sportscasting. This is going to be the first class that goes through it for those that are interested. There's a meeting. Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton are going to be the hosts. They're just going to introduce themselves, kind of what to expect. Is anybody interested? There's going to be a meeting at this building, at this room, whatever. So I went, and I was a huge WWE fan growing up. I remember the house show that I went to, the card, the main event, all that. And I went and was dressed very professionally. And then about a week later, interviews were opened up to potentially be the first class to be an intern at the Performance Center. And then I was interviewed by walk into a room. I have Tom Phillips in front of me, Byron Saxton to the right of me, Triple H to the left of me, and to the far right I have Stephanie McMahon. And you're in this room, you have your resume, and you just look at them. And I looked at Triple H like, I was like, holy Triple H is in the same room as I am. I grew up watching him. And I introduced myself, and they just asked me, questions like, do you watch wrestling? Are you into wrestling? All that jazz. And Tom's a big hockey guy. He lives in Philly. We were able to catch up when I was with the Flyers organization with his wife. And then about maybe a week later, not even a week later, they said 7 to 10 days, if you got the interview, if you got the internship, you'll get a call. So I was actually taking a nap, and a day later it was Stamford, Connecticut. And I knew right away. I was like, yep, this is WWE. So I was actually sleeping, kind of got myself quickly up and answered the call. And a girl that doesn't work there anymore answered the phone call, and she was like, hi, is this Seth Cooper? And I was like, yep. And she was like, we want to offer you an internship job with WWE. Are you interested? We're going to sign you the paperwork. We're going to send you the paperwork. You're going to have to sign it. And then within, 10 days, I signed it. Boom, it was over. And then my first day was February 23rd. It was a Wednesday. They did NXT tapings. And it was actually Pat McAfee's first day at WWE. And I sat right next to him, and I knew who he was, and he just turned around and looked at me and goes, what's up? I go, nothing much. How are you? And then that was the start. I became friends with a lot of people in the industry, but how I really got started was through Full Sail.
It's cool that you got that opportunity through Full Sail, and you've had these opportunities now with WWE and the Flyers. Do you have any interest when you're done it sounds like you're going to go back for a few more months. Do you have any dream goal for after this? Any particular sport or industry?
Kind of not having the opportunity with the Flyers was really nice. And then kind of, with the whole coronavirus, it kind of took a damper on sports. But I'm really interested in trying to get my footing back here. I really have no desire to move. I've moved so many places within the last 2 years, and it's a lot on the parents, and it's a lot to do as far as in money wise and rent and all that. So I plan on trying to find a job here somewhere. If it's with WWE, I'll be able to work from home and just travel the shows, but who knows what their situation's going to be when things kind of get back to normal with the crowds and everything, how many shows they're going to do, and what their budget's going to be. A lot of my friends got cut there that I shared my 9 months there. So it was a tough day for WWE, but my main goal is to try and get back in broadcasting, whether that be hockey or baseball or some sort of front office job. But I loved running social media content for the Flyers and seeing the Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and seeing how much hate comments they got for Gritty. It was great.
So, we've been talking the last couple of days about the podcast, and you mentioned to me that you have your own on Sirius XM. Just kind of plug that, and what's your podcast about? What's it like?
So I actually wanted to start this in 2018. It was January 2018. We did recording shows, and I was super excited to get rolling and did everything. And then I got my internship with WWE and, signed a contract, the whole 9 yards, even though I was an intern. So I wasn't allowed to do my own podcasting. And that's hopefully going to be starting up soon. I'm super excited to start. It's called Talk Hard with Seth Cooper, which I'm excited for. And I'm just going to be interviewing people from the business. You know, I have a lot of friends that are in baseball with working with the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League since I was in 8th grade and that have moved on. And, you know, I know Pat McAfee as a person, and we talk from time to time, and guys that are within WWE. So I'm just going to be a sports kind of talk show, but then also kind of implementing some guests here and there. And I have a pretty good, exciting lineup coming your way. I know that I want to throw all you guys on the show at some point, and you know, it's going to be on Stitcher and Podbeam and Spotify and Apple, and those are the reruns, and also too on iHeartRadio. So I'm very excited for the opportunity and thankful that Sirius was able to pick things up. So yeah, lots of exciting things. Still trying to work out some kinks, but very excited for the podcast, and it's gonna be about 1 to 4 months before it really takes off. But excited for what it holds.
Wow, that's actually really exciting. You know, congratulations. And once again, we'd like to thank you for coming on the show. So, you know, moving forward now, the whole reason we started this podcast is obviously because Jake, Ladd, and I are all stuck at home. You know, there's no more sports broadcasting to be done at the moment due to the fact that, you know, NCAA canceled everything, and obviously all the professional sports as well. When do you kind of feel, you know, we're going to get the first live sports game back, whether it's any sport, NHL, NBA, or NFL for that matter?
June 10th. It's going to be the MLB. They're going to start rolling with spring training. You know, I this is going to sound crazy, but I actually texted Trevor Bauer a couple days ago, and I was like, what's going on? Like, what's happening here? And he was like, basically, the Players Association still has some remorse for Rob Manfred, and it makes sense. You know, you take a look at what's going on within sports right now, and baseball players, they sign their contracts, they want to get paid, and I think that's what the big holdup is right now. The owners and general managers, they met yesterday. You know, it's Wednesday, May 13th, so still, you know, some things to be worked on, but the general managers and the owners approved of it, so they have it. But there's no way they're going to get 162 games in. There's no way they're going to get 144 games in like the KBO. So I think if they realistically 80 to 82 games is going to be right on the money. I think if they open up anywhere from July 1st to July 4th, I think they have a good plan in mind. It's just a matter of if the Players Association is willing to take a cut or be like the NHL and go on a salary cap basis, because right now the MLB isn't on a salary cap basis, and I think some MLB players don't want to go with the 50-50 financial split. Now, okay, you look at it one way as far as the players go, yeah, that should be our money, but come on, you're not driving in any fans, no pun intended, to the ballpark. You're not bringing in your 40, 50, 30,000 crowds a night, and me and you being New York Mets fans, we don't even know what 30,000 fans looks like. But you're not going to see the ticket sales go up. And also too, MLB already initiated and gave money back for those games played in April and May. Do I see fans going back in an MLB ballpark this year? No, I don't. And it's upsetting, but I don't see them playing in front of any fans at all. But also too, I don't understand why the players are so upset. They're still getting $3.7 billion from TV deals. You take a look at TBS for the postseason. You take a look at ESPN. Fox is another big one. New York and Connecticut markets such as SNY, Boston with Nesson. There's going to be so many more television deals that there's going to be money that's generated like the Super Bowl, I feel like, with commercials. I think that if the PA was smart, they would accept the deal for 82 games, go to the universal DH, which was approved today by the Players Association. They're in favor of it, which makes sense. I don't want, you know, a guy like Jacob deGrom hitting in the ninth spot when he should be throwing pitching. And I think if they go double headers, they go 7 innings, they play them all in one shot. I think to cut down on travel, you know, the Phillies, if they play the Mets at home, they should play all their games in one shot and then If they go to Citizens Bank Park and they play 14 games, 12 games, whatever, play them all there. That's going to be your best way to get as many games as possible. But I also like the proposal that the MLB put out about the 16-team postseason. It makes sense. It would be exciting. It would be fun to do the best of 7 and for guys to pick their opponents. I think that's primetime TV. You mean to tell me you can't bring in 2 to 3 million people? I mean, they brought in 15.8 million for 3 days of the NFL draft, and people are starving for sports. There are people that are staying up late watching the KBO right now, and they don't even know how to pronounce any of these guys' names. They just want to see live sports back on television, and I think it's going to happen on June 10th.
So to summarize these meetings, who has more to give right now, the owners or the Players Association, to reach a compromise?
I honestly think that the players need to come up with some sort of compromise, to be honest with you. I think that they just need to bite their contract. There's guys that make 6.2 million a year upwards to 12 million, 13, 14, 15 million, including their endorsements. So I think that players to suck up their money loss and be like, okay, look, with minor league deals, you look at a guy such as Pete Alonso. I know I'm dropping, but it's what. But you look at him, and he's got the most arbitration money out of a rookie deal with the Mets. And if an athlete can't forfeit $250,000 out of their $3.3 million contract, I'm sorry, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So I think it's got to be the players. I think that if they want baseball back, they have to say, okay, we're going to suck it up and we're going to play.
Yeah, and I completely agree. There's got to be something going on. And it was really weird that you, when you mentioned Trevor Bauer, I got a Bleacher Report notification pretty much the identical time that you said that. And it said, Trevor Bauer rips the MLB's plan. He called the league's return to play proposal laughable. So, it's going to be really interesting to see what the players and owners end up coming to a compromise. But, as you said, you're an NHL fan, and the NBA and the NHL are kind of in the same boat right now. What have you heard about that, season? Are they just going to do the playoffs, or are they just going to watch the whole season? What have you heard there?
I read something today that Silver wants to kind of keep going and seeing where this ends up. He's got a 2 to 3 week period. But as far as the NHL goes, there was some smoke to the fire. They were going to play games in New Hampshire, where the Monarchs used to play. Of course, the Monarchs, they lost their ECHL team, and they were just going to station teams, left and right. Now, of course, that was when states were all on lockdown, and you got the news today that Arizona and Florida decided to open up their states to play major league sports, whether that just be Major League Baseball or Major League Soccer. And I don't know. He did say Major League Sports, but he didn't clarify, and that's one thing that is questionable. But as far as the NHL and the NBA go, I mean, you're going to have to resume the season, and then you're going to have to play your playoffs. I just think you should just wash it and then just do your draft in June. Don't crown a champion. You did it before with the lockout. You can do it again. But MLB, I mean, you definitely could play it. Their season hasn't started yet, so it makes sense. But to corral every NHL player that's already been, back in Finland, back in Canada, back over across the world, to get them to play and practice again, I mean, these teams are going to have to practice 15 or 16 days just to get their game legs back. So with the AHL canceling the season yesterday, I don't see it returning, and that's unfortunate. But for the MLB, you're definitely going to see a lot of minor leaguers definitely potentially be on the 30-man roster spots just because the MLIB season's canceled, and I don't ever see it, frankly, single A or fall ball ever returning again to baseball. I think they're going to go with their double A and their triple A because that's where your main prospects are, and you're just going to see a lot of single A, and where they hosted fall ball, you're going to have independent baseball, and they're going to be independently owned, and you're going to get guys that are going to draft. Now, independent baseball for next season makes a lot of sense, especially if the MLB is going to stick with 5 rounds for the rest of, 5 to 10 to 15 years. I don't see them going back to 40 rounds. It's way too much. Kudos to all the Cape guys and the PGCBL guys and everyone that plays, out in Canada in the summer leagues. But I mean, realistically, how many guys that are drafted make the MLB, let alone make AA or AAA? 7%. So I just think that in general, I don't see the NHL or the NBA returning, but I do see baseball coming back, and I also do see football coming back. Whether football takes place in certain cities or not, like Los Angeles, I don't know. But the XFL was a test drive for some of these places where the NFL teams could go. You look at St. Louis, they hosted the XFL pretty well. You look at San Antonio, they just lost their AHL team. Their economy is going to be begging for some professional sports teams back because of Spurs. I mean, everyone likes the Spurs in San Antonio, but they're a two-sport city, and I honestly think that maybe if Jersey and New York, they lift their stuff, they're starting to reopen, but it's getting to the point now where you have NFL training camps that are starting remotely, and these guys need to practice. And I don't think their season's going to get canceled. I just think that they're going to need to potentially relocate, especially with Los Angeles going till July 1st where they're at home order.
Lad, I think you were the next question here. So
the next man up here. So we'll keep going here. You're pretty much promising a baseball season here for us. What are your predictions here? We have Jacob's Braves here. We have your and Aaron's Mets. Any chance the Mets give the Braves, Nationals, and teams like that a run in the division in this 82-game schedule?
Well, you have to take a look. Their divisions are not going to be the same when they come back due to travel. I like the MLB new divisions. I think that even if they still go with what they're going to go with, I think that it's very smart for these teams to change overall. I mean, you got the Yankees, the Mets, the Sox, the Nationals, Baltimore, Phillies, Pirates, Jays, Rays, and Marlins. And then, out west, you got the Dodgers, Angels, Giants, Athletics, Padres, Diamondbacks, Rockies, Rangers, the Cheaters, and the Seattle Mariners. And then you got the Cubs, the White Sox, the Brewers, the Cardinals, the Royals, Reds, Indians, Twins, Braves, and Tigers. So I think that they're still going to stick with their divisions that they wanted to have if they play in Arizona and Florida. So I think that if the Mets if these possible realignments stay the same, the New York Mets, they have the toughest division still. They have the Yankees and they have the Sox, they have the Nats. So realistically, I say we finish third, but also too, with the 16 teams playoffs go, that guarantees us a playoff spot. So I really can't give you a prediction because I don't really know what the alignment's going to be, but I can guarantee you that MLB postseason got a lot more fun if they do the 16 teams.
So, I saw the other day that you posted on your Instagram and your Facebook, you got some, we called it the Misfit Mets jerseys. I saw your little description about each of them. How did you come to obtain those jerseys, and how'd you get them? Where'd you get them from?
So I'm a huge jersey collector. I don't usually wear a lot of replica jerseys. I'm more of a game-worn jersey guy. I have about 28 hockey game-worn jerseys over the years, and I have now 5 or 4 New York Mets game-worn jerseys. I honestly get them through MLB auctions, or I'll go on eBay and I'll just look at different deals. Carlos Gomez was one of my favorite Mets growing up. Granted, he only played one season in 2007, but I followed him through. Never forget the 93 speed he had in MLB Show. The 15 was a huge boost on the base pass for me there to win the chip. But I mean, overall, I usually just get them from random dealers. I'll look and make sure they're legit, and I'll make sure they come with a letter of authenticity. But you wheel and deal with some of them if they're not autographed. If they're not autographed, the value goes down, and a lot of the teammates, especially guys like Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee with the Flyers, called me the Rick Harrison of Pawn Stars.
You said you had Carlos Gomez. I think Jake said you had Aaron Altair as well.
Yeah, I actually have Aaron Altair's only jersey he wore as a New York Met. He played one game for us, and he had a home run in that game. And I didn't even know this until I looked it up. And the guy was like, "Yeah, I'll give you $10 for it." I'm like, $10? Let's go. So I did some Googling and did some searching, looked at the box score. I also have a Keon Broxton jersey, the Gomez jersey, and then I have a Devin Mesoraco one as well. And then I got my dad a John Maine Mets black jersey that they wore in 2007, I think it is.
During the collapse, yeah.
Yeah, when he had his good year. So I hope the Mets bring the blacks back. I think it would be fun if they had a blackout, and especially if Matt Harvey re-signs with the Mets eventually. Maybe he looks shredded. They could do something, call it Black Night at the ballpark or something. But yeah, I kind of just started collecting game-worn jerseys when I was 11, and it just elaborated from there. And it's a very expensive hobby, but will look good in my man cave one day.
With one of the advantages the NFL has had this, with this whole thing is they're really out of season. And for the most part, they've kind of continued things pretty normally, including their schedule release. So, what are your thoughts about how the NFL season is going to work? Do you think it's going to be, normal? Do you think there's still going to be some, aftermath from what's going on right now? Is the NFL going to be like we know and love it come September?
I think so. I mean, if the NFL didn't think so and the sports world didn't think so, they wouldn't have gone with a 3.5-hour NFL release schedule party on ESPN with Trey Wingo. I think that the NFL will come back. I think that we will be able to go into stadiums. Of course, the Miami Dolphins have already taken matters into their own hands and have already said that they're going to cap their stadium. And they're not going to bring in 60,000 fans. They're going to bring in only 15,000 for their home games to start. I think that will change. I think there will be 60 fans back at the Dolphin Stadium, at The Rock. I think that the NFL will move on, and if it does not move on, then we're seriously in a world of trouble, not just in the sports world, but in the world as we know it now. We have to keep the economy rolling, and as weird as this is, the NFL is one of the most leading economy in anything. I mean, NFL Sundays are always NFL Sundays. What do you do on NFL Sundays? Oh, you go out to breakfast at 9 a.m. You wear your jersey. You wear your T-shirt. You come home. You have lunch. You have a beer. Oh, kickoff's at 1. There's a game on at 4. There's a game on at 7. There's games on at 8, like depending on where you are in the time zone. I mean, Football Sunday always has the philosophy it's 5 o'clock somewhere. So, yeah, I do think it comes back, and I think it comes back in full circle. Now, if it doesn't, I see them going to 12 games, and they're going to go 6-6, 6 home, 6 away.
That would be interesting if they have to do that. It's more a personal question for you, so you can touch it however you want to, but would you only be comfortable with fans if there's a vaccine, or do you feel like with the exponential testing and tracing that potentially, even without a vaccine, that we could go back to fans?
I'll answer you the reporter question way. I hope that I am working some sort of NFL game at that point, or get to be able to work with the NFL of some capacity, whether that be a news source outlet or whatever. So hopefully I don't have to worry about it as a fan. But if I do have to worry about it as a fan, I mean, you would hope that they would have everything cleared or somewhat cleared to a certain percentage. So I'm not really necessarily worried about it. And if they have to social distance people, they have to social distance people, whether they put half of fans in one section, half in the other, 3 rows down, 6 seats apart, like however they want to do it. But I do think that I don't think people are really, at least sports people aren't really worried about a vaccine. I think that they just want sports back in their lives. And even if there is no fans, but the football season gets to go on. Well, then ESPN just did a survey a couple days ago, and they said 88% of population of sports world with fans would be acceptable with not being allowed in a stadium. Yes, you also are saving money. You're not spending the $12 beer. You're not spending the $8 nachos. You'll spend that on beer and food instead at the house. So, personally, I think that it doesn't matter to me. I think that I think we'll all be able to rejoice once kind of sports comes back. And I'll say this to all you guys: if there's any athlete out there that says, "Oh, we want to win the Super Bowl," or "Oh, we want to win the World Series," or "Oh, I want to be able to play for my contract," dude, we just had a world pandemic where you should just be happy to play the sport you love.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, we're always going to see it, whether it's sports or just people in general. There's greedy people everywhere. And some of these guys, all they care about is money. They don't care that they're playing the sport that they love. And we've kind of already seen a couple sports start. I watched the UFC the other night, and that card was one of the best cards that I've ever watched in my life. And I don't know if that was just because I hadn't seen sports in a long time, or it was actually that good. We've seen that. We have NASCAR starting up soon, and no one in this group's more excited about NASCAR than me. So that's really exciting. So we have these lower, I guess you could say lower level sports, not the major MLB, NHL, NFL, NBA sports, but they're starting, to play and race. So I feel like we should start seeing these other higher tier sports begin. But with what's going on in the world right now, we still don't have a vaccine, and some states are opening up, some are leaning towards limitations. Do you think that what the UFC and NASCAR are doing right now is the right thing to do? Do you think that they should have waited for these higher level sports to start?
I mean, who else isn't really excited right now to drop $66 on a UFC fight? I mean, people are dying for some sort of live sports. Whether it takes two cockroaches in a ring to fight and let it go, then so be it. It's just, I just think the world is just happy to have sports back in some capacity. Now, NASCAR, you're going around in a left turn for 300 laps. You come back in 10 minutes, you're not missing a thing. So NASCAR really, you miss it, but at the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of NASCAR. So unless that's the only thing I can watch, then that's the only thing I can watch. But I'd rather watch Mets classics from 15 years ago before I put on a NASCAR race.
So final couple questions here for you. We understand that you worked with Jake at the Glens Falls Dragons this year. With that, or in years past rather, with that being said, who was your favorite person to broadcast with at the Glens Falls Dragons?
Man. I got to go with the Homer answer to the broadcast here. It's got to be Jake. But I did have one guy who has worked in the ECHL. His name was Chris Treft. And he really taught me a lot about my craft. Now, this is way before, I went to school. I was 15 or 16 at the time. And he just really told me and I figured out really how to paint a picture of a broadcast, right? As a baseball broadcaster, there's only 15, 20 minutes of actual play within a 3-hour, 4-hour game. Plus, you have to factor in whether you have rain delays or not as well. So I think that overall, my experience before I went to school doing Glens Falls Eagles and Glens Falls Dragons broadcasts, no matter how bad they were and no matter how bad their pitching was and their road record, you name it. But it really kind of taught me how to prepare for a sports broadcast. And then I went from calling Glens Falls Dragons to calling NCAA Division I baseball. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then there's more people that you have to listen to. And then you also have producers in your ear. You have a spotter. You have somebody doing your scorebook for you if you decide not to do a scorebook. It's like, whoa, I have all these different factors. Then you have to factor in promos. You have to factor in commercials. You have to factor in other people in your ear besides your broadcast partners. So I think learning with another different partner and just learning their different styles, right? So it's like not everyone's going to be the Joe Buck. Not everyone's going to be the Al Michaels. You're not going to have the Gary, Keith, and Ron partnership right off the rip. You have to learn their different styles, how they speak. So I think probably I like them all, honestly. You know, I had people from Oswego State, Syracuse University. So, I mean, those were the type of schools that obviously take broadcasting very seriously, and I think that a lot of it now goes into prep. Now, can I say that, you know, Jake was great at prep at the time? No, and neither was I. That's what we go to school for, right? We go to school
For the
and we
record,
learn
Jake's
to prep.
still not good at prep, so let's just get that straight right now.
I mean, you have to prep before your broadcast, but the thing is you can't over prep, right? So if you're doing a baseball game, yeah, you have all these stats in front of you, but baseball is all about telling stories. How can you keep your viewer hooked? And if you're by the batting cages and you see something, is there a reason why this guy's wearing tape on his right wrist when he usually wears it on his left one? Why are baseball players doing something different? Are they on a 9-game hitting streak, one and going to 10? Are they looking to get out of a slump, or are they just whatever? Is there a reason why they changed their walk-up song? So as a broadcaster, and I know all of you, do the same way, we all think differently. Why, like, you just pay attention to certain things, and even then, like, as on the TV, like, that's where I think it's going to be difficult for TV broadcasters to be able to do their broadcast, because there's no fans, right? So you have all this downtime in baseball, and you have all these camera crews cutting to fans, but now you have everyone cutting to, for the KBO, you have cardboard cutouts, and now you have cheerleaders on top of dugouts, and you have an in-arena host for no reason whatsoever. But there's just different factors. And will you see, like they do now on ESPN, will you see broadcasters broadcasting from home? I mean, if baseball does come back, how many people can you have at a ballpark, media included, and will you be able to broadcast from the ballpark? I know that most facilities have it, but also too, there's a lot of MLB stadiums that don't have broadcasting capabilities, and not every broadcast is available in spring training. And that's one things that I pushed for, was no matter if you have to set up a camera or not, I want to be able to watch all spring training games. I want to be able to see the prospects, the guys that necessarily aren't going to make the Braves, Baltimore, the Yankees, the Red Sox, but I still want to see them, because if I get a job in independent ball and their brother or their best friend's playing with them, I can relate to a story and be like, your best friend, didn't make it to the big leagues, but, he was invited to spring training. Can you talk about his style? Boom. I just got a 10-minute interview out of a guy, and that's a 10-minute filler I can use during a broadcast. So there's different styles of ways you can present your broadcast. Now, hockey is a completely different story, and if you don't pay attention within your 12 or 16 minutes worth of warm-ups, and you don't look at the lines, and you don't see who's doing who, well, then you're done. And I know that there's a lot of college teams out there that provide lines and everything like that before a game, and that doesn't happen at the professional level. I've never called a college hockey broadcast before, but I know the layout of it. And so, yeah, there's just different styles and different things that you can do as a broadcaster, and I think that I learned a lot, with the Dragons.
So last question here for you. I'm assuming you've watched this Michael Jordan documentary, correct?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the last 2 episodes to drop, and I usually watched it on Mondays, but the last 2 I watched on Sunday for the first time, and I'm glad I did, but sad to see it end.
So what have your thoughts been of it so far?
I thought they've done a really good job. I think that, I think Jordan was a little worried. I knew that he came out and said, I hope ESPN doesn't make me look bad. But they've really ripped everybody, I feel like, in some sort of way. Jordan rips on Isaiah Thomas. You have Dennis Rodman, who took a 63-hour vacation to Vegas and said to Jordan and Phil Jackson, hey, I'm out. I got to go. Imagine doing that now. Imagine a guy like Mike Trout, Sidney Crosby, going to their coaches, and being like, well, hey, I have to take a 63-hour vacation or a 48-hour vacation because I need a break. Nope, you're going to be scratched and you're just going to sit. Like that's your break. And just the stories and just hearing everything. I never knew that Phil Jackson got his start in Albany, New York. I didn't even know that until I started watching this documentary. And for someone that's not huge into basketball, as maybe the average sports fan or the average sports reporter, I really learned a lot about the sport in college because I have made friends that watch NCAA college basketball, that watch the NBA religiously. And I think they've done a fantastic job on it. I think that the MLB could do something similar with something. If we get the story of the New York Yankees with Posada and Pettit and Jeter and Giambi, though that original 09 team, I think would be something special. But even A-Rod as well, like getting through the stories of the Yankees when they had their playoff runs and everything like that, I think would be special. Or they should do something between the 04 Red Sox as well. I think that you're going to see a lot more sports documentaries start to emerge, especially with the success of The Last Dance. But overall, I give it an A-. I think that these last two episodes are going to be emotional, like the other last two. I think that also, I don't think that Jordan necessarily was a bad teammate. He wanted to win, and you're not going to see a guy today smoke a cigar and have a Louisville Slugger ready to go with music in the background and him just saying, it's time to win. And the amount of stories that he made up to make himself better is ridiculous. Like, I think this Sunday they had a thing where a player said, I'm going to score more than you. And then he said, nice game. And then Jordan scored 38 points in the first half. Like, just the amount of ridiculousness that this guy was able to go, and to hear more in depth about his father and his death and how he played a role in it. Hearing, Dan Patrick, who was featured in the documentary on Sunday, and then hearing just the amount of different stories. I know that Michael Wilbon was he was just talking to us 2 days ago, and he was talking about how much ESPN and the directors, the producers, the editors put into this, and they still have way more that they could have done. They could have easily made this into a 2, 3, 4-part series, or they could have just done 22 episodes. And I don't think it's done. I think there's going to be more content, but it's going to be piecemeal to us.
Yeah, it's been crazy, just the things that we've heard Michael Jordan say and the things that have happened. Last episode was obviously sad when he found out that his dad died. It's been really good, and it's kind of going to be sad that this Sunday is the last 2 episodes. But one of the things that I heard is they're coming out with a baseball one for this summer. So that's all the time we have. But before we go, I do want to say thank you very much, Seth.
Thank you, guys.
It was really cool having you on here. We go back a couple of years to the Glens Falls Dragons, and it's been good to keep in touch. So Seth has his podcast coming out in the near future, and we'll definitely let you guys know about that. And we actually moved our podcast onto Anchor, if you guys want to listen to that. So it'll be on Spotify, Anchor, and we're going to drop this on Friday. So thank you guys, and have a good day.